Honestly, when it all happened, it was just sprung onto us. I wasn't expecting it.
Like, when they talked to you about it, did they actually explain any of this and what was about to happen to
Us
you?
were crying, wondering why this is happening. Is it our fault? Especially for me, that was my biggest thing. Is this my fault? Is this the reason why? Like, am I the reason why this is happening to our family?
Welcome back to episode 3 of Misfits Uncaged. If you have a story you want to share, you can email me at jessie@misfitsuncaged.com. Today, we have a new misfit. The foster system serves its purpose, but to what extent? I honestly have no idea. It was nothing I was ever faced with. Does it actually rescue the kids, or is it just processing them? Is it just a badge and a form showing up, ripping a child out of whatever chaos they know and calling it safety? Is it where your feelings are a liability, your siblings are optional, your future is a baby? Again, I have no idea. But I have someone here who has actually lived inside that very machine, and I have the opportunity today to ask her. So let's welcome our misfit number 2, Alicia.
A lot of things led up to being put in the foster care, but everything started when I was 13 with DCS coming in and things like that.
Okay, and so were you aware that this was about to happen, or was this something that just kind of took place overnight? Like, would somebody just show up and remove you?
When it all happened, it was just sprung onto us. I wasn't expecting it. It was a big surprise, to be honest.
When they talked to you about it, did they actually explain any of this and what was about to happen to you?
When they came to the home, they sit us down and they talked to us separately from our sisters and our brother and our mom and whoever else is in the house. They talked to us separately. Um, they ask us, have you been touched inappropriately, or is there drugs going on in the home, or simple questions that children don't normally hear on a daily basis. You know what I'm saying? Um, they ask us, do you guys eat on a daily basis? Do you take, is your hygiene good? Um, Not necessarily, oh, we're going to take you guys from your parents. That was kind of hidden from us all the time. Um, when we did get taken from our mom, we had no clue. It's like when you rip candy from a child. And it was sad. All of us were crying, wondering why this is happening. Is it our fault? Especially for me, that was my biggest thing. Is this my fault? Is this the reason why? Like, am I the reason why that this is happening to our family?
So they were taking you out, and you said you were surprised.
Yep.
You were like, I'm kind of shocked by this. So everything seemed pretty good to you. So I'm guessing somebody reported something. I'm guessing that's why they came to investigate. I'm not.
So how it led up to the situation was, my mom and her boyfriend were arguing, and I can't remember exactly how. Me and my sisters had stepped in the situation. My brother stepped in the situation. My mom didn't like that as much. So she kicked me and my brother out, and we went to go stay with our uncle. And she had written down on a piece of paper, I give full guardianship to our uncle, and we she kept my sisters there, and just my sisters, not me, not my brother, just my two little sisters. Um, so we went and stayed with our uncle. Uh, this was during school. Um, so we the next day we were going to school, but before we had went to school, the lady that my uncle was staying with at the time, I had came out and told her that, like, crying to them, saying that, he has touched me inappropriately. My mother's boyfriend has touched me inappropriately. And the lady that my uncle was living with, she did some research because he was from North Carolina originally. He was not from Indiana. Um, she did some research and found that he had originally did this in North Carolina too. I can't remember if it was a 16-year-old or not. But it was the same thing, and he had gotten a charge for it in North Carolina. And it really made me upset because, you know, as a mother, if I know these things, you're not gonna be around my child, you know. And if I don't know it and I do find out about it, you're out of my life and I'm calling the cops. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um so I had went to school. I had a phone at the time too. I'd went to school and pretty much I was texting my mom and my mom knew that he had touched me inappropriately too. Um that sprung on about when I turned 13. I told her and she told me she didn't believe me. And I was texting her while I was in school and I was like, did you know about this? And we were pretty much going back and forth over the phone, texting over the phone. And she told me, I'm coming to get you from the school. And I said, no, you're not. You gave your guardianship over. At this point in time, I didn't realize that she can do that. She's still my legal guardian in the school system. And she came up to the school and she caused chaos. I caused chaos. Cops were involved. The school counselor was involved. They pulled us to a separate room, and I'm sitting there arguing with my mom. And obviously, the things that they're hearing requires them to report these things to DCS. So that's how DCS got involved, was because of me and my mom's arguments, and then they came out to the home.
It's the mother's boyfriend. I'm assuming they did something with him. I'm assuming that charges, anything.
Unfortunately, not. Um, he's still free to this day. Um, you know, I can't say he's living lavish. But he's free. He can do this to other little girls. It can happen. You know, he may have changed. He may have not. He's still with my mother to this day. Um, I do allow my daughter around him. My mom knows my boundaries and where I stand on the situation. Um, he has changed from what I've seen, but you never know what somebody's thinking inside mentally.
What would have changed him?
Yeah.
That would be awful. You have to actually interact with this person.
Yep.
Did your mother ever end up believing you, or is this something she just refuses to believe?
Still till this day, it's Alicia, I don't want to hear it. When I sit and try to explain and take her through the same thing I went through and every detail of the situation, it's Alicia, I don't want to hear that. And she starts crying. And, you know, I feel sympathetic for it, but at the same time, this is what your child went through. Somebody you carried in your stomach for 9 months. Somebody you protected their whole life. And for you to sit here and not believe that one story hurts a person. It really does.
And your brother was going through physical abuse. So was he beating up on him, or?
Strangled, thrown across the room, you know, hit. They would call it whoopings, but I'm sorry, the things that I've seen, the things that my brother has been through, those were not whoopings. And I've expressed that to my mother. I've expressed that to him. When we were younger, we used to yell at him and tell him, "You're beating us. You're not giving us whoopings." You know,
Yeah.
a whooping is, you know, a pat on the butt.
Yeah.
You know, you're in trouble, go sit down in the corner. Or, you know, we would get those too, but it's different when it's a closed hand.
Oh, so it was a punch.
Yeah.
Punching. Okay. So rightfully removed from the home. That is good, because you shouldn't have to go through that. But so when you guys were placed in foster care, were you separated? Were you guys together? How were they planning on dealing with that situation?
The day that they came and got us, we were placed in my uncle's care. But because the home that my uncle was living in was not for any human to live, any animal, anything like that, they removed us from my uncle's care and put us in a facility for children. We were all placed together in the same facility. We were there for 3 months. Um, Eventually, me and my brother were moved to a different facility because we were considered what is the word? Misbehaved children. Fighting, getting into trouble, breaking things, just little things like that. My brother's always been like that. He was always I can't say a bad kid because he wasn't a bad kid. He was just screaming for help in his own ways. And for me, on the other hand, I was fighting in school, the normal, I can't, because not all kids go through this.
Yeah.
For me, it was normal. I was fighting, getting in trouble. I've never, if I've ever gotten suspended. I think I have gotten in trouble for it, yes, but I was never caught fighting in school. But we were just considered the bad kids of the bunch. So me and my brother were moved to a different facility that was more locked down than the one we were recent that in the time recently in with my sisters.
Okay, so you're the oldest, correct? And
Yeah.
everyone else is younger than you. Okay,
Yeah.
so how did the facilities um what like were they how long were you actually there first of all? Because was it a pretty good amount of time before I'm assuming your uncle went and did whatever he needed to do to get you guys into the home?
My uncle, he knew. I pretty much knew we were about to this facility. My uncle had let me know that they were about to take us and place us there. But my uncle told us, "You're not gonna be there for long, so don't get comfortable. Don't get used to it. Just be good. Listen to them, and we're figuring things out." We were there for 3 months. My sisters were in one facility for 3 months, the one that we were placed in first. Me and my brother, I think we spent maybe a month and at that facility. I don't think not even a month. And then we were moved to a different one, which they were in the same, it was the same company, just they were different. Like the first one we were in, I don't want to say their name because they are a big public facility that help with different things other than foster care. So the first facility we were in, uh, was pretty much they took kids from foster care, mothers, fathers, parents and things like that. They would take their kids there to if they had a big trip that they were going on and they needed a babysitter but had nobody to help babysit them. This was a facility that they could take their children to, knowing that they had everything that they need and were watched carefully, and then those parents could come pick them back up willingly. um so that was a very open facility. We were allowed to go outside, we could play. I wouldn't necessarily say they take us out and do stuff, but they bring people in and like do these events, and we were freely allowed to do them, and they'd help us with clothes and things like that. The other facility that me and my brother moved to was on lockdown. The door, you had to have a card to get into the doors. Um, we weren't allowed to have shoelaces, strings or anything like that. Pretty much wherever we went, we had to move in groups. Um, if our unit was bad, because they had a boys and girls unit, and I was on the girls and my brother was on the boys. If our unit was bad, we weren't allowed to go out and do anything. So if one person made a mistake or anything like that, it'd ruin it for everyone.
Of
Um,
course.
and that's how I remember it. I had my good moments in there. I also had my bad moments in there. Um, we were there for 3 months, and then we were placed back with my uncle. Um, after he figured out a home and everything for us. So, yeah, we were there for three months, and that was it at those facilities.
Okay, so he did what he needed to do, jumped through whatever hoops, got his stuff together. Now, all of you go and live with him, or is it like it was four of you, correct?
Yes.
Four, and then so did all four of you move in to the home with your uncle?
Yes. So it was my uncle and his boyfriend at the time. All four of us kids moved in with my uncle. The first one to go was my brother. Right after my brother was me. Um, my sister stayed. They were a happy family. You know, behind or in public's eye, they were a happy family. Behind closed doors, every family has their problems, you
Oh
know.
yeah, absolutely. Your brother was gone first, and then you were gone. What does that mean? Where did you guys go?
We went back into the system. Um, once we got placed with our uncle, it was, our DCS worker was coming for visits, a therapist is coming for visits, the recommendations that they give us in order for my uncle to keep us in the home. Um, not just for us kids, but for him and his boyfriend too at the time. Um, pretty much my brother has anger issues. He has ADHD, ADD. My brother took a lot of medications and things like that. I don't think he was taking them after we got into the foster care and placed with my uncle. I think he had stopped taking them. I'm not really sure. Hey baby, come over here. Need those alone. Um, my brother was very uh he was the hardest child my mom had. He wanted to go out and do he's a boy. He wanted to go out and do his own thing, get in trouble. That's what boys do. They get in trouble. Not all of them, but as
Yeah,
we're
no,
younger,
I
they
think
grow.
most of them.
Um, baby, you're gonna mess up my glaze. Give me a tablet. Um, he as we got older, he would, start fires and run around with the bad crowd. BB guns and things like that, stealing bikes and things. And, obviously it's kind of hard for my mom to take care of it when she has three other ones at the house, struggling with all of us kids, my brother getting in trouble with law enforcement and things like that. Um, and so that was kind of like thrown on my uncle my uncle used to tell me all the time that he was scared of me and my brother. He was scared that we were gonna hurt him. Why? I don't know. Um, I could never tell you why my uncle was scared of us.
Were were you being confrontational, or was it
I don't think I don't remember ever yelling at my uncle, ever getting into fights with my uncle, ever physically putting my hands on my uncle. I don't remember my brother ever doing that either. But what led up to my brother leaving is they did get into argument and my brother refused to listen to anything that they were saying. So they tied my brother up and sat on him because they didn't know how to, handle the situation. And the next day he sent away. DCS camp got him because so hard to handle that they just didn't want to deal with it.
so was he, like, freaking out? Like, he wasn't being violent or anything? He was just, like, just arguing?
I can't say he wasn't being violent because, when my brother gets angry, he's a violent person. He would destroy things. Um, I don't, I can't tell you the whole story because I don't remember, you know, how it all ended up. I just remember him ending up being tied up and, sent away the next day.
Okay.
That's all I
So
remember.
he exits, and then you said, "You're next." So why did you exit?
Excuse me. I think I was like few months, maybe a year after my brother had left. At the time I was smoking marijuana, pretty much being defiant, running around doing whatever I wanted, never listening to my authority figures. I started having sexual intercourse with my uncle's boyfriend's sister, and they knew about it. My uncle had specifically told me, "I'm just glad you're doing it with a woman and not a man because you won't get pregnant." And I remember that conversation being odd because, I was bisexual is what I told myself. I was bisexual. And I just remember it being odd because I had liked men too. It wasn't just a woman's thing. You gonna get your tablet and watch Mickey Mouse? She's looking at the camera. um, I just remember that conversation being odd because I liked men, I liked women. There was no changing that, and I was stuck on what I wanted. It was an on and off situation with her. Um, Very much trauma bonded relationship with her. Um, I was cutting myself, self harming. Let me rephrase that. I was self harming, um, in different ways. Um, I remember a friend asked me if I could come hang out with her, and I ended up sleeping with her brother, and I was sure I was pregnant, and I miscarried. And I don't think my uncle ever knew about that. The only person that knew about it was my uncle's brother or my uncle's boyfriend's sister. And things had gotten really bad. I had gotten really defiant against my uncle and his boyfriend. Didn't want to listen no more. Um, I just remember us arguing and him saying, we were fighting and not physically fighting, but arguing. And I yelled at him and I told him I'm self-harming. And he had told me, I don't care. You're going to Melissa tomorrow anyway. She was our DCS worker. And that was another thing that shattered me because, you're my uncle. You sit here and say you love me and you care about me. Then why don't you care about my mental health either? And
Emotional situation, probably. Things just flying out of people's mouths, not really thinking about the other person. Yeah.
yeah,
I can
and that's what led up to me leaving. DCS came and got me, and I was then placed into another facility.
And is that where you stayed, or did you find another home?
I don't think it was ever meant for me to stay in these facilities long term. The facility that they took me to was a year long program. In Muncie, Indiana. Um, for misbehaved girls like me, and they had different categories of kids there, and that's what I'm gonna call it because that's what it felt like to me, is different categories of kids. Um, I was obviously in, they called them cottages, and they were like little homes to me. But I was there for a year. I was in the cottage with a whole bunch of girls who were there for probation. They didn't have homes, and they were, their foster or their DCS workers were looking for homes for them. Um, but most of the girls in that cottage were there because of probation. I felt like I was the only one there for my reasoning, being in DCS and being a disobedient child.
You said you didn't leave until 18. So was it just facility jumping, or you tried to
Um,
go program, different program?
I would say I was in 3 different facilities. One of them was a program. Um, and then the rest of them were foster homes. The last facility I was in was the one in Muncie, Indiana. Um, I was there for a year, and then my uncle actually took me back in. Uh,
Okay.
I don't think anything changed when I went back with my uncle, but I got praised that I was changing and I was doing this, and you know, I was a different person overall. You know, in that facility, I was doing therapy, and they changed they actually got me on medication for my depression, my severe depression and anxiety. Um, I had my fights in the facility, physical fights and mental fights. You know, my mom would they would bring my mom out every once in a while to see me, and so we can have visitations. Um, During these therapy sessions, I didn't feel like they were really helping me, but they were helping me. Um, my therapist will walk me through my trauma that I've experienced from my mom and her boyfriend, and you know, I would always leave crying, but I always felt different after leaving therapy because I felt like something changed and I was understanding a lot more. And I feel like that's my where my maturity came from. I want to say I was like 14 going on 15 in this facility. Um the only reason I say 14 and 15 is because everything happened so fast and I was moved so much. And it's like all for me all of it feels. Do you want to play with it? Okay. Here, let me open it. Um Everything was, to me, everything felt like it was years and years and years of my life, but it was so boom 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 back and forth that it wasn't years and years of my life. It was just back to back to back. It just kept happening to me. Like it never
It never felt like home for you at any point, did it? You never got that moment where it's just like, "Oh, this is good. This is healthy." You never
no,
got to experience that.
no, and everywhere that I went, my foster homes, anything like that, when I stayed with my uncle, I would call it home, but it never felt like home to me. I always felt alone and singled out and like a stranger in somebody's home. Like I felt like I was going over to a friend's house and meeting their parents for the first time and everybody that they live with, and just having that spotlight on me all the time.
Do you think if you were placed in a more traditional home, I mean, like, for a longer term, could you have felt more at home, or is it kind of just like it's never home?
I was placed in a foster home in Alexandria, Indiana. Um, I had found out later on, after I turned 18, that I was placed in Christian homes. Um, when we were younger, we went to church and everything. We liked going to the church that we originally went to before we got into foster care. My grandma went there. My grandma died in the home that the church gave to my grandma. Pretty much what from what I understood is all of us kids were placed in Christian homes to where we were forced into religion and had to go to church. Like there was no ands, ifs, and buts about it. We had to go to church. I told my mom that if we weren't placed in religious homes, I felt like our experience could have been a little bit different than what we've experienced growing up. Um, I don't know if it was the same for my brother if he was placed in all religious homes. I don't know if he had to experience, being forced to go to church and things like that. But for me, every home that I was put in, it's you will go to church or you have to go to church with us. When the first home that I was placed in, the very first foster home I was ever placed in, they had children in the home, biological children, and I think that's what made me feel singled out because you already have bio kids here. Why do you need me here? And they have made me feel so special. They said that they were going to adopt me and that they've always wanted a daughter. And I was still in contact with my mom. I always had supervisions with her. Or supervised visits with her. I was always, talking to my mom over the phone. I had social media and everything, and this family, prevented me from having a phone and told me social media was not, healthy for me. And at the time, I did not agree with them. Obviously, a teenager's not going to agree that social media is bad for them. But now that I look back at it, like the things that I was doing, I was like, that was very toxic. And, I praise my foster mom at the time for literally, saving me from that toxicity. But one day she came in my room and she had straight up told me, I don't think we're gonna adopt you because I can't be your mom. And it threw me. Like, I was so confused. And I was hurt mainly because, I was actually going to have my own family. I eventually started, eating dinner with them and, feeling like I'm a part of that family, feeling like this is my home. And then she told that to me and it crashed to me. Like, I was hurt.
Of course. Well, I don't understand what would make her change her mind like that all of a sudden.
Um, from my understanding is she couldn't step into my mom's shoes and she wanted a divorced child that had no relationship with their parents at all.
Oh, okay.
And
She
I
didn't really have to compete with mother. Okay.
after I understood that, it was just kind of, oh, okay, yeah, nobody's gonna ever be able to replace my mom. I mean, I look at you as a mother. I would love for you to be, my second mom, but mom's always gonna be there, no matter what. Like, I'm not blocking my mom out just for you.
What was going on to the point where your mother didn't eventually get you back?
From my understanding, it was the reasoning we got took into the foster care is drugs and the assault that happened between me and the boyfriend. No, baby, you can't have the stuff in that. That's bad. Move. Um, that's how we got into the foster care system is the drugs and the sexual abuse. Uh, Pretty much from my understanding is my mom was doing the things that she needed to do. Um, it was just taking time. I eventually found out that she just eventually gave up and seen that we were in better places and she just I can't say she didn't care because she was always there checking in on us and things like that, but it felt like she didn't care to take us back. Like this was her break. This was like what she needed to move on with her life.
So did you end your time in the foster system at your uncle's, or was that you were back in a facility by that point?
There's a lot that led up to my ending time. After that foster mom had told me that she didn't want to adopt me, I started not listening and like really bad, not listening. And they didn't want that around their boys. So DCS came and picked me up. Um or no, DCS actually didn't pick me up from her home. She did communicate with DCS saying that she didn't want me in the home no more. And she took me to another foster home. And pretty much I stayed in this I was 16 when I got into this foster home. And I turned 17 in this foster home as well. So I was at this foster home for about 2 years. Um I loved this foster home. It was an older lady. She had her granddaughter in the home too, who she adopted. We were very close in age. Actually, I think we were the same age. She's a year older than me though. Um, I got really close to, the foster kid or the foster daughter that was there. We became best friends. Like we couldn't be separated. Like that was my sister. And I was struggling with mental health a lot and suicidal thoughts and self-harming and drug use and alcohol use a lot in this house. Um I think I was mainly struggling with all of that for the simple fact I knew I could get away with it because, no elderly woman's gonna sit there and stop me. That's my mind process at the time.
Oh, yeah.
I was doing the things that I needed to do, like therapy, and I was supposed to be taking medication and things like that, and I just couldn't find the right therapist to help me. I eventually found one, loved her. Um, I tell her everything that I was doing, the drug use, the alcohol use, and she'd sit down and tell me like, "Oh, that's self harm in a different form, right?" I didn't know this,
Yeah.
and she'd walk me through things. She'd give me, different things to cope with, and I've tried everything, and my the her granddaughter, the foster mom's granddaughter, eventually moved out because she turned 18 before me. And um before I turned 18, um I was self-harming very bad. I was just in a very bad mindset. Um I eventually ended up in a mental health crisis facility. Because of my self-harming, I was arrested and I was taken to a community, I want to say Terre Haute or somewhere. I was placed in a mental health crisis prevention facility, and I was there my 18th birthday, and I was ready to go home because I felt like I was not meant to be there. I needed help, just I didn't need to be locked up to get that help. And my whole like DCS team was trying to help get me out of there. And at this time, my old DCS workers were changed because I was now considered old enough to, do adult things. 16, 17, 18 is what they considered old enough to do adult things. So the team that I had when I entered the mental health facility, I loved them. They did everything they could to, help me and be there for my needs. They got me out. I did eventually end up going to Uh-oh. Um, I ended up going to, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a temporary foster home. And she took in girls who pretty much self-harm and have these intentions of doing things to themselves or others. Um, I loved her home. I wanted to stay there, but I could not because it was a temporary placement. Um, while I was in her home, they brought a foster parent who was willing to take me in, and we set up a meeting for me to meet the lady that I was going to go live with until I could get her out on my own. um I thought she was very odd to me. I'm an empath. I don't know if you know what that is.
No.
I can pretty much feel people's like emotions, and like if you were sad around me, I'm feeling your sadness. If anybody's anxious around me, I feel that they're anxious. She just gave me a weird vibe. Um, some of the things she said didn't sit right with me, and I was scared to go into her home. I didn't want to go into her home, and I had expressed that to my workers. They didn't care. Um, I was then eventually took into this lady's home where I stayed for, I think I was there for a week, and then that was it. Um, I pretty much moved in with this lady, and she said, "You will go to church with me." Like there was no option, and I'm not religious or any of that. It's you will. I don't care if you don't want to or not. You will go to church with me. You will do this. You will do that. And I never liked being demanded around. You can sit here and talk to me like I'm a human being. Don't demand me. I'm not your slave. Um, I eventually got online, and I was texting this dude, and he asked me if I wanted to go to Kentucky with him. I'm 18. You know, I felt like I could go out and do whatever I wanted. Hey, get off of that. Um, he texted me. He said I asked him what time he was leaving. He said 6 o'clock in the morning. I looked at it as a perfect escape because that's when I had to get ready for school. I told my foster mom, I said, "Hey, this guy that I'm talking to wants to take me to school." And she said, I asked her if it was okay. I didn't say I'm gonna go with this guy because he wants to take me to school. I asked her if it was okay. She said yes, but I would like for him to come in so I can meet him. That blew me because I'm like, lady, I don't even know you. And um he showed up, and my foster parent was in the shower, and the other girl that she had there with her, she had already left for school. And normally the foster parent takes me to school. I packed a book bag. I left everything of mine there at her house. I packed a book bag of what I needed, and I snuck out the door, and I left.
Wow, you rebel. You rebel child.
And I had my therapist. I had like everybody trying to get a hold of me and figure out where I'm at, because obviously, what I'm thinking is my foster mom just realized that I disappeared. The school's calling and telling them that I haven't showed up to school or anything. And my therapist like texting me, and this is the only person that I trust. And she's like, "Alicia, I just want to know where you are. I want to know that you're safe." And I texted her, I said, "I'm safe. I'm not gonna tell you where I am, but I'm safe. I'm fine." And she said, "That's fine." Um, so yeah.
Wow. Wow. That is, yeah, you definitely did not live the normal life that most children live.
Yeah.
Wow.
And for some kids out there, like it's a lot worse for them. Like a lot of a lot of the foster kids that I ran into had way worse than what I ever experienced. They went without food, worse beatings than what I ever experienced, rape, things like that. And you know, I would cry and like hold the like I got close to so many foster kids. Because I'm so it hurts me because even though I've been through the same thing, they were going through worse, and they didn't deserve that because they were actually good human beings. They were good people, and I didn't I could not explain to myself why somebody would want to harm children like that. Um um sorry.
No, you're fine. Oh my God, you're
Pretty much like I got really close to a lot of people. Um I would help a lot of kids too, especially if they were younger than me and I was older. I had a little girl who was younger than me, and I had to share a room with her at a facility. And um, she would pull her eyelashes out and her eyebrow hairs out, and I didn't understand why. And she had an episode, and these adult people would come to me and tell me that I'm sharing a room with people like this, and they would say, "I know she's really weird," and she these are adults speaking on children like
yeah, I was
this.
about to say, like, they weren't handling that situation very good, were they?
No, what's up, Benny? Um, Pretty much like these were adults speaking on kids like this, and it just kind of blew me away on how they were speaking about these children. Because when they explained that she has episodes and things like that, and I've kind of out because I was like, what kind of episode? am I gonna get harmed? Like, am I gonna have to fight somebody? Like, I didn't. And um, she ended up having an episode, and she's like sitting there, rocking back and forth, and like picking at her face and her eyebrows and her eyelashes. And like, I just go over to her and I securely give her a hug to where she stops doing that, because I realized all she needed was comfort. All
Yeah.
she needed was somebody to sit down and listen to what she had to say. That's all these kids need, is somebody to listen, somebody to believe them. That's all they need.
You got lucky with your team, and some of these kids aren't getting that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not getting that, it's coming out in different ways, rather it be violence or, like you said, the episode where she's pulling out her eyelash. Like this, kids can do some crazy stuff when they're going through hard times, anxiety and depression.
Every child that I've came across in the foster care system, outside of the foster care system, friends, people I consider my family to this day, they have lived horrible lives. They've been through horrible things. And I ask them, well, what is the DCS worker doing? What are they doing to help you? Oh, nothing. They think everything's my fault, or turn around. They just keep moving me home to home. Just little things. And I eventually want to be a foster parent to older kids, simply because I was always told in the foster care system, nobody wants older kids. Nobody wants teenagers. Why? Because they're defiant, because they don't want to listen, because they have trauma. It's life. That's human.
Yeah, that's exactly why. Most people don't want to put up with that. They want the young kid where they can, raise them the way they want to, give them that structure. Whereas when you have an older child in the house, you're not gonna. It's not gonna. That person's not gonna take very well to the structure that's laid out to them. They
Yep.
went through stuff. They have their own opinions. They have their own life experiences. So I could see a lot of older children suffering in the care. Like, if you could actually sit down with, like, give advice to a caseworker out there, what do you think is, like, one of the biggest mistakes they make? Having lived it, experienced it, you know. So if you could be like, "This is what you're doing wrong," what would you say?
Listen, you know, even if they're considered boy cried wolf or liars, listen, take what they're saying into notes, look into it. If they don't feel comfortable going to a certain home, look into that home, because maybe there's a reason behind it. Or make sure that these kids actually have what they need: food, clothing, the care that you're supposed to be providing for them. Because, in all honesty, my brother has experienced some things that no child should experience. Why was he dropped off at a gas station when he was younger and not to his father, like you guys were supposed to do?
Who was dropping him off at a gas station?
DCS.
DTS dropped your brother off at a gas station.
Yep.
What?
When they to drop him off at his father's house.
So he was supposed to be going to the father. Did did the father go to the like the station to pick him up from DTS?
I don't know how all of this all it went. All I know is that DCS dropped him off at a gas station, and he was supposed to go to his dad.
Whoa. Whoa. That's not okay.
My mom said she should have reported it. Their dad, he doesn't speak a lot of. He speaks English, but I don't think he understands a lot of it.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I don't even think what he was doing when it came to the gas system. Um, and that's the problem, is a lot of parents, like, even when they get custody of their children, they don't know what they can and can't do. It's said to them, but then if they do something that DCS doesn't like, oh, it's a mess up and we're taking your kids. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't think it was ever recorded. Ever. And it's hard to, you know, get your records in places that you've been in DCS because I've tried. I've tried to get my records and they want me to go through this long process when it's my information. Why can't I have my information, you know?
They like to make it rough. They like to make it tough.
But if that's things that I can say to a DCS worker or workers in that field in general, my biggest thing would be to listen. I get you're trying to help these kids and everything and you're demanding them and finding homes for them and you're busy. I get it. It's a busy job. There's a lot of kids out here whose family, whose parents could give two craps about them.
Yeah.
I get it. I guess that's our life. I guess that's the world. But those kids need people. Obviously. Look at their
Yeah.
parents. Look at their family. They need people. And for you to sit there and not listen to them and treat like crap like they didn't just go through hell and back blows my mind.
They probably see so many kids, it's almost a dime a dozen, you know?
Yep.
And that's sad. But you seem to turn out pretty level-headed, though. You seem to you have your baby there in the background.
Hey, are you trying to speak too? You trying to put your 2 cents out there? Hey, you make an earthquake.
Wow.
You know, at first I didn't want to have kids. I did not want kids at all. Hey, can you stop, please? Hey, I just asked you to stop, please. No, you're just bored. um, I did not want kids at all. I loved kids. I wanted to work with kids. You know, I wanted to work in facilities with kids that I like that are going through the same things that I went through, and I would still love to do so. You know, life catches up with you and makes you busy sometimes, though. Um, I was not expecting my daughter. Um, she was a very big blessing. I just always wanted to get my story out there and, you know, let others know that mental health, reach out, speak to somebody, foster care, speak up for yourself because these people don't care. And even if they do, it's okay for you to speak up for yourself. It's okay for you to, you know, hey, I don't like this.
And you did that today, and I really appreciate it. You actually come in here and telling that. I mean, that is definitely far from normal. I
It
mean,
is.
most people don't go through that. I mean, that's insane. That's and you've stepped up and you've actually told your story, and I think that gives others confidence to say their story and actually, speak out if something wrong is happening to them.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's hard to say, but you did that and forgave the person. So you were quite the remarkable young lady. And I really appreciate you coming on here and telling that story.
There's even the babies that get put in the foster system, you know, they have stories too.
Yeah.
And I feel like as they get older, they deserve to know what they've been through, you know.
Yeah.
Granted, you know, we have closed adoptions and things like that. That's understandable, but they deserve to know what their body, what trauma has brought onto their body. You know what I'm saying? Um, even for like little kids, like it's hard for them. Like if my daughter's 2, and I would see all age of kids, and it's sad to see some of the things that they have to go through, and the way they get treated in the system, and you know if they have life differently, if they have it down differently, it just any little thing they're treated differently.
Yeah.
They're humans, and like I grew up in school bullied, pointed out. Oh, he. Okay, and I go through things. You think you're all goody goody goody, But in reality, let's not speak about what goes on behind closed doors in your home.
Right.
We're all human. We all go through it.
Yeah.
And it's not just foster care. There's kids out there who literally don't even get the chance to be in foster care because their home is so bad and they have absolutely nobody to sit there and be, oh, hey, this kid is going through this, and be taken out of that situation. They deal with that for their whole lives.
Yeah. Yeah. If you even both sides of it.
Mm-hmm. And if you can speak up for yourself, if you're old enough to understand, do it.
Yes.
I did not regret. Granted, sometimes I regret the things and choices that I've made, but at the same time, it took me out of a bad situation. And if it can take you out of a bad situation, if it can stop the beatings and the rape and the sexual assault and the things that you are going through that you as a child should not be going through, do it.
All right. Well, I thank you very much for being on with me, Alicia. It's been awesome, and I really do appreciate your bravery. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. If you have a story you want to share, be sure to email it to me at Jessie@misfitsuncaged.com.